Hi guys, and welcome back to the final part of the intermediate chess course. Hope you've been enjoying the videos. Today I just wanted to go on to a subject that I think is quite important in chess, and that is the concept of a passed pawn. A passed pawn is one that can't be stopped from getting to the end by an enemy pawn on either side of it. So these pawns can be particularly valuable because it means that an enemy piece or enemy pieces have to sort of go across and stop this pawn. There's a really famous quote which you might be interested in from a famous grandmaster, which is that the passed pawn is a criminal. It must be kept under constant surveillance. Put it under lock and key or something like that. So I think it's a really nice way of describing the importance of a passed pawn. Anyway, before we get to that, I'll just show you a quick puzzle, and then we'll go on to the main topic. So we're playing as white in this puzzle. Your job, first of all, is to identify the material. So notice that we compare pieces. White has got 2 pawns, black has got 3. So would you be happy with the draw here as white? Yeah, I think probably yes. Notice that black has got a passed pawn. This pawn is going towards the end. So that is always going to be the most, I suppose this is quite a key pawn, because how's white going to stop it? That's the question. How can white do it? Well, we might just go like this, try and stop it like that, but eventually I feel that black will be able to, well, black's got the advantage because of the extra pawn, and they may well be able to shepherd that pawn to the end anyway with the help of the queen. So I think what white needs is a trick. Okay, I'm not going to give any clues on this one. I'm asking you to find white's best move in this position. So set the board up and pause the video. Okay, I particularly like these puzzles because this one involves stalemate. Okay, so your job now, if you didn't spot it before, is to spot a way to get yourself into stalemate, because that will draw the game. That's what we want. Pause the video if you need to. So white's best move is the unbelievable queen to g5 check. Okay, notice this is actually a fork. We're doing a fork on the king and the pawn, as well as this one here. So if black moves the king or whatever, then we can take that pawn for free, and we probably draw the game because we've got equal material now. And well, if black takes our queen, you'll notice this little sort of dash come up there, which means it's the end of the game because it's stalemate. White can't move the king anywhere, not legally anyway, and that pawn can't move, but this pawn looks like it can move, but it's pinned by the queen. So that's an illegal move, which is a good thing for white because, well, that's it. It's the end of the game by stalemate, and it's a draw. So well done if you spotted that. Next, I'm going to go on to another example. This is a game that was played between 2 of my students very recently, and if they're watching, then hi. I'm just going to show you a little portion of the game because something I was really impressed by. So it's a fairly balanced position, I would say, but notice the material. So white's got 2 rooks, black's got 2 rooks, queen and queen, and although white's got an extra knight, black has these 2 extra pawns on the king's side, both passed pawns. Okay, so black here chose, I think, a very good move. Notice that his rook is threatened, so black chose move queen to f8. I thought that was a very clever move because it defends the rook. And notice that if white swaps the queens off, it means that black can bring the other rook into the game, and these two rooks, which will be here and here, will be helping push that pawn forward potentially. Rooks that work together on the same file, on the same rank, are much more powerful if they work together. So I thought that was a clever move. It's possible that white could have come and checked the king, but he chose the move queen e5, okay. And another good move here by black, which was the move rook to e8. I thought this was very good because black brings the final piece into the game that he hasn't used yet and makes a really dangerous threat. So he attacks the queen, but more importantly than that, he creates a skewer. He forces this queen to move and attacks the knight, which is behind it. So this queen actually can't defend the knight directly. Notice that it's not on the same color, and it can't, unfortunately, it can't get across to here because of the pawn that's blocking it. So white actually found a really good move in this position. I'm wondering if you can see it. So pause the video and see if you can work it out. Well, this is a subject that we've touched on a little bit before in the course. And if you recognize the word Zwischenschach, or the word in between check, then maybe you can see the move now, which is this one, queen to f4 check. That is a very strong move because not only does white check the king, forcing black to react to what he's doing, but he also gives himself an extra move, effectively. So black can't take the knight, not yet anyway. He has to move the king, and then, well, there's a number of things that I think white could do, but the most important thing is to rescue the knight. So this is the way that it occurs. White goes knight to g1. So I thought that was a really nice sequence of moves. Both players really thinking carefully about their moves and creating threads, but also notice that in the position where black brought the rook across, white didn't panic and he found a way out of the threat. And I thought that was really good. So well done to both those players. Okay, I think I want to go on to the main theme today, which is passed pawns. Set up this board or this position, and we're going to be playing as white here. What is white's best move? Our pawns, by the way, are going this way, and black's coming towards us. Okay, so black is kind of cut off our king. So what is white's best move here? Okay, well then if you saw this move, pawn to g6, what we're trying to do is create a passed pawn so that we can get to the end. Now, notice that black can't bypass because white will just take the other pawn and vice versa. So black has to take this pawn one way or another. Let's say that he takes it like, let's say he takes like this. Pawn takes pawn. What would you play in this position? Pause the video. The answer is another pawn sacrifice. It's this, pawn to f6. You might think, why? Surely I'm going to lose my pawn. But okay, black has two main options here. Option number one, pawn takes pawn, but then we can take this pawn and get to the end. Option number two, pawn takes pawn, but then after that, what would we play? How do we get a queen as quickly as possible here? We just push that pawn up. So there's nothing that black can do to stop this pawn now. I'll just repeat that move. Pawn to g6, and then obviously it doesn't really matter which way black takes because all we need to do is sacrifice the other pawn so that we can create a route through to the end. Okay, so that was really cool. Notice if it was black's go in this position, the best move here would be to push that pawn up, because then it would stop white's plan completely. So well done if you spotted that move. Okay, next example. Here is a bit more of a complex situation. We have these 8 pawns locked together in position. First question, what out of these 4 pawns, which are going this way, by the way, for playing as black, which one of these 4 pawns is the weakest? Well, the answer is this pawn here, because notice that this pawn is protected by its friend, this one again by its friend, and this one again, this friend. So this is the only pawn which is not protected by a friend. The same here for black's pawn. This is black's weakest pawn. It's black to move. What should we play in this position? I think there are a number of good moves, but one in particular that I think is strong. So pause the video. Well, it's possible we could protect our pawn. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. But I think a more aggressive move would be rook to a2, attacking the enemy pawn. So probably the best move here for white is simply to retreat the rook to defend the pawn. There's not really any way that black can make progress here. But let's say that white took this pawn. Notice that our pawn here is 1 step closer than this one from getting to the end. So all we need to do is get rid of that pawn. I suspect that white may realize this, but it's probably going to be too late. Notice that pawn is also going to be now in danger. So our plan is basically to move our rook, maybe threaten this pawn, and then get that pawn to the end. It's probably easier than it looks, easier than it sounds. There are some things that white can do, such as checking the enemy king, or maybe trying to get the king back. But black has got a very good position here. So the best move here after rook a2 would be simply to protect the pawn, and that will probably be a draw. Okay, now here is this is the position. Now imagine the next one. So this is the same position, but white is missing a pawn. Again, that pawn is still very weak. The question now is, how do we create a passed pawn? Pause the video. If you want to set this position up, obviously do that. I think black's got 2 strong moves here. Number 1 is to attack the pawn again with rook a2. So let's say that we did play rook a2. And as in the example before, white defends the pawn. What do we play in this position? Pause the video and see if you can work it out. Notice that pawn is pinned. It can't really move, otherwise white will take the rook. So how do we take advantage of that? We play pawn to c3. So then we can create a passed pawn by pushing that pawn to the end, probably then mopping up that pawn as well. That's an easy win for black. And I think there's also something to be said for playing this move first. In chess, when we try to create a passed pawn by sacrificing another one, we call that a lever. So it means that literally we're levering this pawn out of the way so we can push that one up. Notice that if white doesn't take the pawn, then we can just push that one up. And we have the same situation as before, where we mop up that pawn here. So white will take, and then most likely I would say that we'd push that up. And if white tried to stop us from getting a queen, what would we play in this position? Pause the video. I would say the move rook to a1 is going to be very strong, because it means that we're covering the queening square. If white takes us, we take back. And if white runs away, we promote our pawn to a queen. So again, nice easy win. So we're using something called a lever to create a passed pawn. Okay, one more example, and then we're at the end of the course. This position. This is something that occurred in a game in 1971. It's a candidates tournament match between Bobby Fischer and Bent Larsen. These are two very strong grandmasters. Bobby Fischer was world champion in the 70s. Now, what should we do here? How do we win the game as white? I'm asking for a general example rather than specific ideas. But how would you go about winning this game? Well, notice that although material is equal, 3 pawns against 3, white has the advantage of a passed pawn. So that means that if white pushes the pawn up like this, black must use his king to cut it off. So what we can do basically is use this pawn as something called a decoy, which is that we're going to sacrifice it in order to drag black's king to the queen side and then move our king in like this. So actually the move that was played, I believe something was like this, and then, well, this pawn marches to the end, so black has to cover it, and then we move the king in to attack the base of the pawn chain, the weakest part. So then we should be able to win this game. Okay, so even if black tries to run away, well, that's not an issue for us. We can just mop up this pawn. Okay, this is very fast. I know I'm going very quickly, but this is an easy win now for white. Okay, let me just quickly show you that again. This pawn is a decoy, forces black's king across, and then we march in to attack the weakest point of the chain. Okay, I'm going to unshare my position, my screen. I really hope you enjoyed this course. I'm sure I'll be doing more videos at some point. If you feel that you understood a lot of the themes, then by all means have a look at the advanced videos. There's nothing wrong with that at all. If you feel ready for that, and I think if you've got any questions, let me know. I just like to say thanks for your support and keep playing chess. Enjoy your chess adventures.